to quite understand, but other than that, they're good. That's our dog. She's teething right now, which is where she'll lose some of her teeth. And she is kind of bad with the lambs because she likes to chew on things. The lambs don't like it. She'll come along and want to play with them or do things like that.
She wants to chew on the lambs?
Sometimes. The nice thing is it's never that hard, but it's still not that good. You know? So they've never bled because of it, but if they ever do bled, they're going to do it. If you've got that taste good.
These are just a couple days old?
Yep. This one's 1 day older than this one. And this one was 5 pounds when it was born.
They don't shake, they wag their tail like dogs, do they? You guys like working with animals?
Yep.
Like living on a farm?
Yep.
Other uncles involved?
No, we've bought them all out.
So you won't start moving them up the mountain until after June, or?
Yeah, till after probably the 5th of June.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll stay down here and we'll actually put the bull in with them on the 25th of May, and then that way they'll start calving around the 1st of March.
Mm-hmm. And those are some little calves there, right?
Yep. Yeah, they've all got little calves there. Most of them are just laying down in the grass.
Well, what's the most challenging part of this whole operation, would you say?
I think the most challenging part is just trying to manage the finances, you know, as far as there's a lot of expense that goes into it, and you have a year in which you don't have good prices for the cattle or for the sheep, and you have to be able to somehow have, you know, something to run on, you know, carry over. And
is the price fluctuating a lot still?
Yeah, I mean, the prices go up and down year to year, and you may have 1 or 2 years that it's good, and then you'll have 1 or 2 years that's bad, or, you know.
You have years where you can't even make a profit on them?
Oh yeah.
Really? Wow.
The cattle prices, this last year, the cattle prices were such that you didn't make a profit.
Really?
Yeah.
The sheep was better then, huh?
The sheep were all right, and that's one thing that we've kind of done is made it by running both sheep and cows. A lot of times, if the sheep are up, the cows are down. The cows are up, the sheep are down, up, or cattle are up, sheep are down.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps out, you know, quite a bit, so that it's just not such a hard hit, you know. Unless you have both sheep and cattle prices down, then that makes it rough. But you have, I mean, lately, in the last 10 years, you've had a lot of price fluctuation as far as the price of cows, you know, were really good and calves were really good, and then, you know, then they dropped off and they're really bad. So
what's that attributed to?
A lot of it, I think, is how people use the markets. You know, I mean, when people talk about commodities and Wall Street, and they say, oh, you know, we're buying futures on this or this or this, well, that's all great, you know, for them, but what they're doing is buying, you know, a future like in the beef or whatever. And if they get hurt buying a futures because they think, oh, this is going to be great, and everyone along the supply chain will kind of do that. Well, as everyone jumps on, then that creates a problem. So then it kind of has to try and balance out. And typically the producers at the bottom, you know, as a producer, you don't go, oh, okay, the future on beef is going to be really good, so I'm going to go out and buy 300 more head. Because if you could run 300 more head, most likely you would be doing that anyway. So it's not like, you know, you can't just jump in and double your herd.
Mm-hmm.
Or you don't say, oh man, cattle prices are going to be bad, I'm going to just, you know, sell off half my herd or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you always kind of stay the same, and then you have, you know, all these people in the markets doing that, and
you have no control as a producer.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're just at the bottom of the thing, and so when something falls, you get hit.
Yeah.
You know, and typically even if the prices are good, I mean, it's kind of like that as they talk with the oil prices. They're like, oh, the price per barrel of oil is way down, and yet you go to the pump and you're like, went down what, 10 cents? You know, It's not that big of a difference for me.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how the producers are. That they talk, oh, you know, prices, there's a big huge demand on beef, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get a bigger price because there's more demand there.
And the future's probably already, how far into the future are the future prices set?
So yeah, they're looking at a lot of different, you know, they look at a lot of different things as far as how much beef is there in, you know, in freezers, and how much is on the hoof, or, you know, whatever, in feedlots and whatnot. And so they try and look at all these different things and say, well, here's what this demand is, and so then, you know, I should buy now or whatever. And so usually what you have is 2-year swings at least.
Oh,
you know,
really?
like,
wow.
If you have the price starts coming up and you get a really good price, you may have a good price for 1 or 2 years, and then it's going to come down. And the higher the price gets, the more you know it's going to come down.
Yeah.
I mean, sheep, what was it? Probably 8 years ago, sheep just jumped a lot. And the one year we were getting over $2. And the year before we were getting like $1.20. And then, so that next year went up over $2. And people were just like, oh, this is great. And the $1.25 wasn't too bad. I mean, everyone's pretty happy, you know. It's barely over breaking even and whatnot, but that's pretty good. So at $2, people were just tickled pink. Well, then the next year after that, it was like 90 cents, you know, and you're just like, ooh, that's way under breaking even then, so that kind of hurts.
So if it goes way up, you can count on it
having a
coming
crash
way down
on the other side, so so you kind of have to say, oh, and that's the hard part. And that's the hard part about farming is typically you don't, you know, in agriculture, you don't get every 2 weeks, you're not getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, once a year you get an influx of income. And so then you have to try and make sure you manage that throughout the year so that you can, you know, keep your operation running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's got to be a challenge. And has this valley here, has it gone from many farms to a lot more just like fewer farms with bigger holdings, or what's happened in this area here? Just in the last, I guess, 20, 30, 40 years?
In the last 20 years, it hasn't changed that much. Other than there's just more, the farms are kind of stayed the same, other than they've just been bought by people who can afford to, who have made money in something else, and then they can afford to just own the ground. And before that, then there were a lot more family farms, family ranches. Lost Creek here used to run 100,000 sheep, and now there's about 4,500 sheep that are running in Lost Creek.
Really?
So
way fewer.
Way fewer.
Because why?
Mainly because, I mean, people couldn't make it in agriculture. You know, I mean, the price of agriculture, like I say, it's just always, it's so hard because it's always running at just break even or just under or just above, that you have a really bad year or you have something that occurs and you have no way to overcome that. You know, sort of a thing.
You can get that if you need to.
Hello.
So you said your neighbor to the north of you is a billionaire who just came in and bought the land and wants to just have it for his elk hunting. Is that right?
Yeah, the guy just north of us, he bought the family-owned ranch that was just north of ours. It was owned by the Jacobs family. 3 brothers from developers from Georgia bought it, and they were planning on cutting it up and selling it in like 100-acre parcels. And they had it for 9 months, and he came in and bought it 9 months later. And he's just bought all of it. And so he bought it just because I think for a place to put money, you know. And it's nice because he's got it in a trust so that he's not gonna, from what I understand, that it won't be sold. It'll just always stay like that, so that's nice. And then he's been good to work with, as far as, you know, being in agriculture and being a neighbor. And sometimes that doesn't always occur.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's good for people to realize the importance of agriculture and the importance that agriculture has on the ground, and managing for everything from wildlife to watershed to, you know, whatever. Because it does, managing ground is more than just letting it sit idle.
Yeah.
And
because you get
the biggest challenges with wildlife and the livestock is, one, you don't, I mean, as a landowner, you don't own the wildlife. You know, it's wildlife. And, you know, and so you have interest, even though you have the private ground and you have your livestock, you have public interest there also. So you have to try to help manage the public interest of the wildlife, just as you are trying to run a business, which is your business of livestock. And so you can't just, you know, as a landowner, you can't just be like, oh, well, I want to kill all the wildlife, you know. One, that's not good stewardship, and two, I mean, most landowners, you like the wildlife, you know, and especially how Utah has created the CWMU program, which is a Cooperative Wildlife Management Unit. It's made it so that it's been very supportive for agriculture, because without that, a lot of the ranches around us were owned as family ranches, and the CWMU program wasn't started until after they sold out because they weren't able to hold on. But the CWMU makes it possible that we can work with the state. I mean, it gives a landowner incentive to work with the state and give state oversight on the management of the wildlife. But it also makes it so that a landowner can have another revenue stream.
And has that been huge for you, like a game changer?
Yes, it's a game changer.
Nice.
I mean, it's what the Cooperative Wildlife Management Unit does is makes it possible, whereas before hunting on our property, we'd have tons of people come up and ask us to hunt. And you know, you hate telling people no. You hate trying to be a bad guy or whatnot, because again, like I said, it is a public interest there of wildlife, but you're like, I also have to try and manage the land, and I can't have someone come in and burn the place down because they were done with a campfire, or go take their truck off the road and when it's really wet or whatnot, and they slide down, and who do they call? Well, they call you because it's your land, and you have to go try and take your equipment to pull them out or whatever else. And the problem was is all the hunting was all within 7 days, just like the general season.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you're like, okay, well, I can only let so many people up, because we had problems before of people getting in fights. We would let people in and they'd get in fights, and my grandfather had gone up and saw one of the hunters that they'd let in and asked him, said, how's the hunt going? And the guy was like, oh, great, I've had some really good sound shots today. And my grandfather was like, what do you mean sound shots? He's like, you hear a sound in the bushes and you shoot at it. My grandfather's like, get off. I've got sheep and cows, I've got sheep herders. I can't have you doing that. And yet you get all types of people, and it's like, most people say one bad apple ruins the whole thing. Well, yeah, it's true, it does.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Cooperative Wildlife Management Unit, it's made it possible that now we can take the hunting out to 70 days. That makes it possible for an outfitter to run a business, and it makes it, then they can lease the hunting from us. And for the landowner, you should go, oh, okay, now I can still run my operation. I can have someone who is managing the hunting so that I don't have to babysit every person that's up here. I don't have to worry about people shooting out other people's tires because they were hunting in their area or whatever else. The outfitter just has his paid hunters come in and take it, and he guides them, and he's with them all the time, and it's just a lot nicer that way. And then it's great because state hunters can then draw out on the property and come and hunt, and
they buy a tag just like they normally would through the state.
Yep.
And then they draw it from here if they're lucky. And
yep, they just draw out from the state and buy a regular tag just like they do from the state, and they get so many days that they can hunt on the ranch, and it's just them. You as a landowner or as the outfitters, you can't have other people hunting. You can't say, well, I have this part of the property, but you can't hunt there because that's the best hunting. You can't limit them. It's but we've had really good success with a lot of the state hunters that are, and again, it's advantageous for you to try and make them happy and make sure that they have a good hunt and make sure that they enjoy it, because they go back and say, hey, yeah, this is a great program. I got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to hunt on some private land that I would never have been able to see or hunt on, and for us, most of the time, there's a lot of times we get people to say, hey, can I go hiking or can I go mountain biking, on the property? And, we say, yeah, as long as they can just demonstrate to us that they are responsible, and they know where they're going and know what they're doing. Scout groups or other groups, will come up and hike and camp, and that's great,
So how do they determine how many are going to outfitters and how many are going into the general season? That's just all on their end?
So that's all just done with the state law, and that's with the deer and the elk. It's usually like 10%, and they have some different rules for different places.
10% to outfitters, or
10% of the total taken. So if you're taking 20 bull elk, then 2 of them go to the state.
Oh, I see.
If you're taking 30 bull elk, 3 of them would go to the state. If you're taking...
So, and how do you know how many you got? How many tags total?
So you have to put together a plan, and you work with the DWR to kind of formulate the plan on, they do the wildlife counts and that, and then you say, this is what I feel like we can do to try and keep the herd managed, the wildlife herds managed at the numbers that we want to see, which of course the DWR says, this is what our target, management is for what your ground is, and these are the numbers, and so you kind of put that together, and so then you come up with a number of like 20, 10, 5, whatever that number is for the amount of animals, wildlife that you have. And then, like I say, if you're taking less than 10 bull elk, you're still giving 1 of those to the state. So if on your property, which is with the CWMU, you have to have more than 10,000 acres. So, most people running 10,000 acres are taking more than just 10 bull elk or 10 buck deer or whatever. And so, but if it is less, then you would still give 1. The minimum's 1.
Okay. Huh. So then they just write you a check after they sell all the tags, or
the outfitter? Well, usually the outfitter, you just you kind of enter negotiations with them, and they'll do a contract for a number of years, and they'll just say, this is what the numbers are going to be about, and this is how much I'll pay you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, okay, or no, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, and like I say, as far as being in agriculture, yeah, it's a game changer, because it's a revenue stream that you don't have to do anything for, other than deal with the outfitter, themselves.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So you and your 2 brothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you not all 3 be able to be doing this if it weren't for that?
Oh yeah.
Really?
If it wasn't, honestly, we've been doing with the hunting, it's been over 20 years now, but we wouldn't have the ranch without it.
Really?
All the other ranches around us that were family-owned ranches, they sold out. That was the reason. But, is because it couldn't be profitable. You can't, and even now, most of the people in the industry are older. It's hard trying to get young people to get into the industry. One, because you can't buy the ground and pay for it with agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest problem. If you have the ground and you have the livestock, like I say, if it's a good year, you can make a profit. But you can't buy the ground and make a profit. You'd never make the payments.
Yeah.
So that limits who can really get into the business. And even people, like I say, most of these family ranches around here, they're young people, their sons and grandsons can't make a living on it. And so and that's the thing that kills me is I read these farm and ranch magazines, you know, and they have stories of young people, you know, we're making it in the business, and probably 90% of them are, well, I'm an electrician and I'm able to keep working on the family farm and supplementing it with my electrical, you know, business. And I don't know very many other industries that claim that as a standard of success.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
that I can not have to sell it by working my other job.
Exactly. You know, I mean, a banker doesn't say, well, I actually, you know, work at Walmart so that I can keep the bank running. I mean, you know.
Yeah. So I guess you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Do you earn more money per head of wildlife on your property now than you do per head of livestock?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I should say as a sum total, are you earning more from the wildlife than you are from the livestock?
So,
probably not.
Like I say, from the wildlife, we are, my wages, my dad's wages, my brother's wages, all come from the wildlife.
Really?
Yeah.
Not from the livestock at all?
Not from the livestock. The livestock, I mean, like I say, most years the livestock can make, if they can make tractor payments, if they can make the, you know, pay for the herders' wages, if they can pay, you know, just like
break even, basically?
The truck expenses, just those things, then, you know, that's good. And I mean, like I say, when you say, you know, when you talk about making a profit with the livestock, you're talking, you know, 10, 20 grand. You know, it's not enough for a living.
Wow.
So then you go, okay, well, I'm going to take this 10 grand, I'm going to try and hold it over, or, you know, whatnot, so that I can keep it for that rainy day, you know, next year when it's not so good or whatnot. But the hunting, like I say, we don't, other than just, you know, a bit of work with managing and putting that, but as far as like, I mean, there's no marketing, there's no advertising, there's no, you know, the outfitter does a lot of that. And so, and he makes a lot. I mean, a lot of people say, well, why don't you guys do that? Well, because then I'd be doing that full time, you know, and I couldn't do the farming. And then people say, well, why do you even do the farming? And it's like, well, because, you know, what am I gonna do then? You know, I mean, we've had, when some of these other ranches have sold, and I mean, they sell for a lot of money. And then we always get people that call us up and say, well, we want to buy your ranch. And they're like, you know, well, you guys are stupid. Do you know how much money this is or whatever? But then you're like, well, what am I going to do? You know, take the money and go sit on the beach in Brazil?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the land is more valuable than the currency long term.
Yeah.
It's always shown that.
Well, and that's what I've, you know, in a conversation with one of the guys, he was just like, you guys are stupid. You know how much money this is? And that's what I asked him. I said, well, you know, if you think I'm retarded, let me ask you this. If I sell the property to you tomorrow, can I buy it back for $1 more? Well, no. Well, then I'll just keep on, I'll hold it, you know? And you know, most people in agriculture kind of feel that way, and it's more of like, this is the way of life. I mean, it's like having my kids help. That's what I like, and you know, that's what I enjoy.
This lifestyle. I
exactly.
mean, how much? What kind of price tag would you put on this lifestyle?
That's right.
To be able to raise your kids this way.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and it's hard work, but it's always changing. You know, I don't sit at a desk all day and do the same thing. You know, one day I'm working with the sheep, the next day I'm, you know, branding calves, the next day I'm, you know, going up on the mountain to do, you know, fence to whatever. So, and with most of those things, I can always take my kids, and that's the reason I wanted to work on the farm. And hopefully that's the reason my kids will say, hey, that's what I want too. So, and it is good. And, for a few years, because we're always looking to try and find ways, like I say, because it is tight, to earn extra money, to say, what can we do? So my brother and I, we did snowmobile tours for 3 years. And then we'd pick people up on their ski vacation in Park City, and we'd bring them here and take them up on a snowmobile tour. And inevitably, we'd get up on top of the mountain and we'd turn the machines off, and they'd be like, oh, this is so beautiful, we want to take pictures. And they'd take the pictures, and then they'd say, oh, you don't know how lucky you are. I live in Chicago, or I live in blah, 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 and you guys just don't know how lucky you are. And I'd always turn to them and say, no, you don't know how lucky I am. Like, you're only seeing one day, of this, and it's really is wonderful. So, I mean, I enjoy it.
Yeah. So there's never, you can't foresee there ever becoming a day when your land becomes so valuable where that price somebody comes in and offers is so much that you would jump on it?
No. I mean, yeah. The guy, so the 3 brothers from Georgia that had bought the ranch north of us, they had it for 9 months, and in that 9 months, they sold it for $9 million more than what they bought it for. And I mean, when that kind of hit the news and whatnot, we had people from all over the country calling and saying, hey, I want to buy the ground, I want to buy your ground, and offering all sorts of money. But we were like, no. I mean, as long as we can make a living on it, then we'll keep it, and we'll keep farming.
And is pretty much every other rancher in this area in the same boat you're in, where their real income is coming from the wildlife, not the livestock? From the hunting. And actually, a lot of them, yeah, either the income's coming from the wildlife, or a lot of the ground's been bought now by wealthy people that don't need an extra income. So one of the two. Yeah, one of the two. But there is a middle ground, and it is like this whole pasture-raised movement. And a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, it's about 3% now of all cattle raised is grass finished, and people are willing to pay a whole lot more for that. Do you ever foresee your operation moving into that, or is that just something you don't want to? I mean, that's something that yeah, we could easily do, and I mean, we basically do that now. Other than when our calves get old enough, we just ship them off to some other farmer who has corn or extra hay or whatever, and they buy them and they finish them that way. And yeah, we could keep them and do that. The biggest problem of that is having the market to do it. Yeah. At 3%, yeah, there's good money. It's increasing by 100% every year for the last 5 years. Yeah. So it's quickly gaining traction. But you're looking at, I mean, where we sell 200 calves in the fall, and let's just say 10% of them were going that way. I mean, you're talking 20 cows. Yeah. And the problem of that is then you're like, now I've got 20 different people that are all trying to buy, that want one, cow or whatnot, and from ways or whatever. And it's a lot of coordination. It becomes. There's a reason you get more money for it, because it's a huge headache that way. Yeah. It's like selling hay. I mean, I could sell all of my hay on KSL. I could put it on KSL and say, hey, and sell it for more money than, which I don't sell any of the hay, because we use it. But I'm just saying I could just raise the hay and sell it and make a lot of money that way. Other than even people now, they'll come up and say, well, I only want one bale. I want one bale now, and I want one bale then. I want one bale, and
and then they have a trailer that maybe isn't heavy enough. There's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's kind of the problem that way. And in a lot of the sheep discussions, you know, I went to the wool growers meetings and whatnot. You know, they talk about that. You know, doing more of that. But it's great for someone who has a farm flock where they're only raising the 20 head. Well, that's 100% of theirs going that way, and it makes it a lot more manageable to do. Whereas if you're not set up for it, it makes it a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
And you can't, like I say, you can do it, but then everyone only has 24 hours in a day. You're going to lose something somewhere.
Yeah.
You know? So that's the biggest thing I think will happen with it. And I think that you'll only ever see a certain percentage of the market go that way, just because even, I mean, there's not a lot of people say, oh, I want the grass-fed beef, but they can't take a whole beef. And that's usually what you find is, like I say, you got 20 of them that you sell that way, and a lot of times it goes to 50 people, you know.
Well, we cover this like burgeoning market. That's one of our really specific niches in our coverage, and so we've written about 4 grass-fed ranchers.
Yeah.
The only one who was an existing giant ranch to make the transition to do portion grass-fed is the Mirren Ranch, the Canyon Meadows.
Oh yeah.
And so the kids, Deborah and Rick, they love it because they're watching their ground become this amazing pasture. Like, it really improves your pasture if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
But then the grandpa Alaric, he's like, this is so much work and headaches, and we got to go to Salt Lake and sell it at a farmer's market. We got to interact with all these customers, and so they're selling like maybe 10% as grass fed.
Yeah.
And I think Deborah likes it the best, but he just thinks it's a big bunch of headaches, and it's kind of funny.
Well, and that, you know, as far as young people staying on the farm, it's a good niche for young people.
Yeah, she wouldn't be able to be on the farm if that's why she came in and told her dad, we got to do this because I want to work on the farm and I want to have a thing to do.
And that's the nice thing is, like I say, the 24 hours in a day, if you have someone, you know, if you've got your kid that says, hey, I want to come and I want to struggle and do that, you know, then you can say, hey, okay, great. I mean, we've got everything, but you still have to get everything else done because.
But at the same time, there's so many more people, I think, too, wanting to come and hunt and have a bull elk or a deer that they can harvest off the land and know it lived a good life, and so both are becoming more popular. So
well, and I do think, I mean, I think that you'll see, I mean, I think you'll see that, and I actually think that you'll see some of those things change. Management practice on both ends of it. Like I say, I think that you'll see a change even in like farmers market end of it. So not just on the producer's end, but on the farmers market end, because to be able to manage, if you have a large farmers market and let's say you get 10,000 people coming through to buy beef at a farmer's market, which, you know, let's take Salt Lake. That's not a huge number, you know, but that's a huge number for a producer at a farmer's market to have that much beef there to be able to sell. And so what you see is, I think, is you're going to see more change in that also. And I've thought that before, more, maybe almost I hate to say, but like an Uber model. Yeah. Where
the producer's connecting directly with the customer.
Well, and where the customer's actually buying the calf or buying the cow be live,
Oh yeah.
not at the farmer, So, so a person says, hey, I want to buy a cow, and then that way I get a calf every year for the next, 15 years, because I own the cow.
Yeah.
And, I'll take the risk on it dying, if it dies or whatever, but I also get to, see it, how it's managed and how it works, and, I can say, this is, if my animal gets sick, I want nothing done to it, or hey, I want you to try and save it, I want you to, whatever.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
And that's what I think, and is that kind of a model is I think what you'll see more, because then it's, like I say, it's not 10,000 people coming to a farmer's market all to buy some meat. Rather, it's people going out and saying, hey, I'll pay, I'll pay $3,000 to own the cow, and then I want the calf every year, and give me what the cost is for the calf, and that becomes more economical for me actually than even trying to go to a farmer's market to buy it. And I see how it's run and that, so. And for the farmer, it's 10 times easier than to you trying to haul to 100 different people, have them come to you.
Yeah.
That way. So I actually think you'll
you're right.
probably see that model growing more with the grass-fed and the.
Because we talked to Harmon's just a few days ago. They can't find a grass-fed producer big enough to supply their stores, so they have to go to California for all their grass-fed beef.
Yeah.
They said they'd love to have a Utah supplier, but there's nobody doing it who wants to deal with their headaches of certification. Like Harmon's has their own, no, I'm sorry, not Harmon's, Whole Foods. Whole Foods has their own inspectors come out and certification program and paperwork, and you got to jump through all their hoops, and so it's, obviously even if you're dealing with a big huge supermarket, you're not dealing with a wholesaler anymore.
Well, and one problem that we've seen with programs like that too is it's like, they 2 years ago, the outdoor retailers all came up and met with the wool growers, Patagonia and them, and they were like, oh, if you raise the wool to our standards, then we're gonna pay you more, and this is gonna be great, right? And they start talking, and they have their own inspectors and that, and you're like, okay, so wait a minute, what does this cost? And they're like, well, it's gonna cost $3,000 every year for the inspector to come out and make sure that how it's working. And we're like, okay, so how much more money do you get on the wool? Because realistically, what you're talking about, you have to come out when I'm lambing, you have to come out when I'm doing all this stuff. I have to do a mountain more of paperwork to do this, and I'm gonna get $3,000 more? I can't hire a secretary to do this on $3,000. Now, and they kind of scratch their head like, why wouldn't these guys do it? And you're like, well, that's part of the problem. I mean, it kind of becomes a bit of a joke that way, in that you're like, I don't mind having a standard and doing a standard. It's it's all of this other stuff. I can't do all of that because I'm not you've got to pay a lot more to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's like Whole Foods. I'm sure that if they talk about their inspectors coming out, that's usually typically what they are doing is saying, well, our inspector comes out, you have to pay for those inspections. If we get, Omri does the same thing. If someone has a complaint, you're committed to pay for the inspection or whatever. But then you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm not making any profit there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think, between wholesale and direct-to-consumer, there's just a lot of headaches in between.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I say, that's why I think like the model I was talking about will take off more, because again, it's like Whole Foods. Whole Foods go, you know, well, we've branded ourselves to be Whole Foods, but a lot of people go, well, you're still a chain, you know, and a big chain. Well, everyone loves to have, I know a guy who knows a guy that I get it straight from the farm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, that's always going to be a lot better that way.
Do you sell some of your sheep direct to consumers? And some of your cows too?
Yeah.
And you just know who's the right buyer, who's not going to cause you a bunch of headaches, I guess. Or...
Yeah. And a lot of times, again, like I say, to do the pre-sale model would be ideal, because then as far as the producer goes, it gives you some stability. And that's the nice thing about having, like when we sell the calves, when we go to sell the calves, we actually sell them on cable TV in June, and they don't leave the ranch until October, you know. But we say, you know, here's where they run. We're certified natural, you know, so there's no antibiotics, there's none of that stuff. All of that is very simple. You know, the paperwork's it's simply done and it's easy. And then, but we can say we're going to sell 200, and boom, they're gone.
On cable TV, so
yep.
Wow, like on QVC or something like that, or what?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's a RFD TV, so it's a rural farm channel.
And you're selling them to feedlots or finishers, or
so yeah, we're selling
whoever,
them to,
I guess.
We're to whoever really wants to buy them. But most of the buyers are just other farmers from the Midwest or somewhere else that will have, you know, they're raising feed.
Yeah.
So then they're
just
buying the calves to feed them out and get them up to weight, and then they'll sell them. From there, they usually go to like maybe a finisher or just a slaughterhouse. So that's typically what happens, and that would be the good thing about, like I say, the model is having a pre-sale to be able to say, okay, because what you can't do is have people say, oh yeah, I want one, and then it comes October, oh well, you know, I don't have the money, or you know, this came up and I can't, and you're like, great, now what do I do with, you know, these?
Yeah.
And that kind of becomes the problem.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be interesting. And so I guess just to segue into the sheep pellets, you basically decided you can either get the going rate for sheep wool, or no, you're just using the wool that you would have discarded, right, for the sheep pellets.
Yeah.
The stuff that was covered in, you know, just not clean and
just black wool.
Yeah.
Black wool is no good, and so you don't get a good price for it. And so a lot of people just like, I throw that away because it's not worth. I can't afford to ship it somewhere to have it sold, and there's no buyers for it. So that's what I did, is again looking for some way to try and diversify, so that in your bad years you aren't hurt as much. And looking to diversify that way, I decided to look into using the wool and pelletize it and use it as a fertilizer. And you know, of course, most of the wool that we produce is good wool, but it goes to, you know, clothing or whatnot. But the bad wool we'd still sell. We'd still sell, but only because we would sell just because we had room on the truck with the rest of the good wool, and you'd get 5 cents for it, and you're like, yeah, okay. But now I'm taking that junk wool and, you know, pelletizing, making the fertilizer, and that's helping not just our operation but the whole sheep industry. And I've gone around to all over the western U.S. to these wool conventions to give presentations on, you know, the product and what I'm doing with it, and you know, letting people know that, hey, I need any of your junk wool, don't throw it away. You can now ship it to me, and this is the price you get for it. I mean, people are excited, thrilled about it.
Because you're giving them 5 cents and before they throw it away.
Well, I'm actually giving them 60 cents.
60 cents?
Yeah, 50 to 60 cents a pound.
Oh, wow.
Whereas before they were getting, the most they could get is 5 cents. So, yeah, I mean, it's a lot.
So you're basically changing the game in the whole sheep industry.
Oh, yeah.
And are you selling enough sheep wool pellets at this point? Or
no.
Probably not. Yeah.
I'm not selling enough. I mean, we're growing, but it's just such a brand new product, and it's so unique that most people, they go, oh, it's a gimmick. But then, you know, all the tests that we've done, all the researchers or whatever, that's kind of what, you know, that's what their initial thought was. Oh, it's a gimmick. Can't be that good. Someone would have been doing it for, you know, before. And then they go, oh, wow, no, this really works. And it really fertilizes and really helps the plants grow, and it really holds water. So, so it is growing that way. And as we are getting it more on the market, there's more sales. So that's, I mean, my hope is that we can have, you know, enough sales, and I don't know why there wouldn't be enough sales for the whole nation, for the whole country, and you know, so that every sheep producer out there says, hey, this is great.
And you got a patent on it?
I do.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Well, cool.